At 10 p.m. only on News 2.
November 20th, 2000.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The Supreme Court of the great state of Florida is now in session.
Today, the eyes of the nation turn to Florida's top court.
The right to vote includes the right to have that vote counted.
What evidence do we have that it couldn't be done within a 7-day period?
I don't know.
Give attention, and you shall be heard.
What is the boundaries?
The question that you're asking, I can't exactly answer.
God save these United States, the great state of Florida, and this honorable court.
Tonight, the outcome of the election rests in the justices' hands as the nation waits.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Chris Bury.
Of all the predictions made exactly 2 weeks ago on the eve of the election, virtually none was so far-fetched as to imagine the race might hinge on the dusty technicalities of Florida law argued today in Tallahassee. But that's where we are, now that the Florida Supreme Court has heard from a parade of lawyers representing Vice President Gore, Governor Bush, state election officials, and even an individual voter. From the contour of their questions today, it seemed that Florida's justices, 5 men and 2 women, were searching for some kind of solution. Perhaps something in between Governor Bush's demand to certify the results immediately and Vice President Gore's request to allow the hand counts in selected counties to continue indefinitely. Today's Supreme Court hearing occupied center stage, of course, but other election dramas were playing out as well. In Florida's official count, now that the absentee ballots are in, George W. Bush leads Al Gore by 930 votes. The state's most populous county, Miami-Dade, began counting its ballots by hand today, and the hand counts continue in Palm Beach and Broward counties. By late today, Vice President Gore had picked up more than 150 votes unofficially in those manual recounts. In a clear about-face, Gore's Democratic allies urged officials in Florida to reconsider military ballots that bear no postmark. Over the weekend, hundreds of such military votes were rejected. The Democrats feared a public relations disaster in the making. But tonight, all eyes are on the Florida Supreme Court, which could announce its decision as early as tomorrow. Indeed, the justices seem as anxious as anyone to get this over with soon, as we hear in this report from Nightline correspondent John Donvan.
If you were looking for high-toned oratory from high-powered lawyers, it did not happen. The justices were watching the clock.
Thank you, Mr. Glock. Your time is up. Mr. Hancock, I think your time.
Yes.
You're in your rebuttal time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And more important, they kept raking in on the 8 lawyers who faced them. They were skeptical. They were challenging. They were occasionally impatient.
Have you researched the statutes in other states to compare them to Florida's?
I'm not aware of whether they're mandatory or not. I know that there's never...
I'm just asking whether you have researched other states to see whether they have comparable statutory schemes. Have you?
No, I'm not aware of...
you haven't researched other states, is what your answer is?
No.
They took that tone with both sides. Now, we say both sides, but it was actually slightly more complex than that. One side was there arguing that the recounts going on in Florida should stop immediately. That side includes 2 lawyers for George Bush, 1 representing a Republican voter, and a lawyer for Florida's Republican Secretary of State, Katherine Harris, who last week announced the recounts going on are basically meaningless. The other side was arguing that the recounts should count in the final vote and that Florida's Supreme Court should set up guidelines to keep it all fair and honest. That side has 2 lawyers representing Florida counties, 1 for Florida's Democratic Attorney General and 1 speaking for the Vice President of the United States. That side went first, and its philosophical argument was straightforward. In America, every vote counts, or at least it should. Paul Hancock is Florida's Deputy Attorney General.
Our concern with the Secretary of State's interpretation of Florida law and everything that followed from that interpretation is that it was not guided by sound legal principles. It's flatly wrong. It elevates the machines over voters. We submit to the court, and it's plainly set forth in the statute that in that recount, county officials should look at those ballots to discern the intent of the voter.
But the judges asked, doesn't Florida law set a deadline?
But there's
also a provision of that statute that says it should be done within 7 days.
Yes was the answer, but the law is vague about that. And besides, 7 days is not enough time to complete a recount.
Under the statutory schedule, it can't be done in a week.
Is that really something that we have in the record that it can't be done? What evidence do we have that it couldn't be done within a 7-day period?
I don't know that there's any evidence in the record. I think it's intuitive that with this big a task, and to us, to the Attorney General, the important part is recognize the voters' rights.
Several hundred people have been working thousands of hours, several thousand hours in doing this recount, Democrats and Republicans.
Bruce Rogow, representing Palm Beach County, anticipated Bush campaign objections that a recount could lead to cheating.
It's being done in a way that is open, absolutely open to the public. It's televised, as a matter of fact. It is tedious work, but it is being done tenderly by the canvassing board.
Finally, the biggest name among the attorneys, David Boies of the Gore campaign. His main argument, look closely at Florida law, pay attention to the word official.
There's nothing in that statute that says the official returns have to be completed by 7 days. Then the official returns, as defined in statute, to include the result not only of the initial returns, but of the manual recounted votes and of the absentee ballot votes that are not included in those first 7 days.
What is the time limit then?
Well, Your Honor, if I were sitting in your chair, that would be a difficult question for me. It is an even more difficult question standing where I am.
Several of the justices seem to have that question of time on their minds. They're concerned over how much longer this could drag on if recounts continue and then the recounts themselves are contested. The basic question is this. Next month, when the Electoral College chooses the next president, what if Florida still doesn't have an election result? Does that mean that Floridians will be counted out of this process completely? None of these smart lawyers seem to have an answer to that question.
Joining us now, two legal experts. Doug Kamick is a professor of law at Pepperdine University. He joins us from Los Angeles. And Pam Karlan is a professor at Stanford Law School. She joins us from Stanford, California. I must say, after hearing all the rhetoric we've heard in the last couple of weeks, it was refreshing to hear the justices so often cut to the chase. And Pam Karlan, let me ask you, realizing it's impossible to divine anything really from the judge's question, what was your sense of how the Democratic team did today?
Well, I think that the major concern the court has is what happens after the certification. Will there be time for the inevitable election contests? That is the post-certification litigation. And here I think the Democrats may not have given them quite as much of a roadmap as the court had hoped in terms of actual dates. On the other hand, I think they did well at getting across the point that the manual recounts really should go forward.
Doug Kamick, once again realizing we can't read too much into the justices' questions because it's a complex argument, a lot of written briefs as well as oral briefs. But what was your sense of how the Democrats did?
Well, as a matter of style, I think they did very well, and they were playing to the court of public opinion as well as the Supreme Court. But I agree with Professor Karlan. They left an awful lot of questions unanswered. How long are the recounts going to take? What will the deadline be if the statutory deadline is not followed? Does the court have equitable power to waive the deadlines in the statute? These things the court needed answers to, and I don't think they got them from the Democrats.
We're going to follow up some of those questions later in this broadcast, but when we come back, how the other side's arguments went today.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by the Philip Morris family of companies.
I see her at the same time almost every day. She's always there waiting for me. I bring her lunch up to her apartment and I sing Italian love songs to her.
Philip Morris provides grants to Meals on Wheels programs so that thousands of seniors can have a hot meal and a visitor. Philip Morris and Meals on Wheels are fighting more than just hunger among the elderly. We're fighting loneliness. Working to make a difference, the people of Philip Morris.
two eyes see the same world. No two businesses are identical. And now, one company creates internet solutions unique to you.
Fujitsu. The possibilities are infinite.
Tomorrow, an election and the transition to power on hold. What could this mean for the country? Watch ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Turn on back-to-back country 95.5.
Ready to run. But I like it, I love it.
95.5 is Nashville's official country music station.
I can feel you breathe, it's washing over me. Baby, ride this down.
Back-to-back country 95.5 FM.
Baby, I love you. When our love starts living.
Listen to Nashville's official country music station.
Back-to-back country 95.5.
The people of Williamson County have spoken. Our customers have voted Walker Chevy Olds to be the #1 auto dealer in Williamson County. The best service, selection, and prices that can't be beat. Like this 2001 Blazer for only $17,900. Or how about nothing down, 0 interest, and no payments for 1 full year on every Oldsmobile in stock. We're giving thanks this year to you for voting us #1. That's why when you come to Walker Chevy Olds in Franklin, the car you want will be the car on sale.
Attorneys for the Republican Florida Secretary of State were heard today, along with attorneys for Governor George W. Bush. Once again, Nightline's John Donvan.
We elected Bush! We elected Bush! No more Bush! No more Bush!
Immediately before today's Florida Supreme Court hearing, dueling political rallies outside the courthouse.
We'll have the Bush side now.
Immediately after the hearings, each side's lawyers already spinning.
It will be up to the Supreme Court to make its decision. We've made our arguments in our brief and orally.
Both scenes part of the fevered partisan environment that one of George Bush's lawyers referred to in the courtroom.
And that's why we have deadlines. And that's why we have uniform rules. Because we want election contests to be decided not in this fevered partisan environment where everyone knows that the way they proceed in counting ballots, or whether they use a two-corner rule versus a dimpled ballot, it may well affect the outcome of the election, because that introduces subjectivity and partisanship into it. And that is why it is very important that we follow the rules that are set forth in the statute that were written by the legislature long ago.
The argument made by George Bush's lawyers for stopping the recount came down to this: that Florida already has rules about elections and the counting of ballots, and those rules are clear. They do give significant authority to Florida's Secretary of State, and you can't go changing the rules just because they may be imperfect or because you don't like the outcome of the vote count. Barry Richard is another Bush lawyer.
It is the job of the Secretary of State. It has been reposed in her by the legislature, and 2 constitutions, the United States Constitution and the Florida Constitution, in unusually explicit language, have delegated that decision not to the state of Florida, not to the courts of the state of Florida, but to the legislature of the state of Florida. And the legislature of the state of Florida has reposed that authority in the Secretary of State.
Joe Clark represents Florida's Secretary of State, Republican Katherine Harris.
There's no suggestion anywhere here in the record that we have a problem with the voting machines or there was any fraud or anything else. What we're trying to do is to deal with the problem of people who did not follow instructions. The instructions were to put the stylus through the hole in the ballot. They did not follow those instructions.
And as for the fact that some counties started their hand counts too late to meet the deadline of 7 days after Election Day,
if you are permitted to initiate something at any point in time, and it has to be turned in at a certain time, that is the same basic rule that I had in high school with term papers. You can start the term paper the night before if you want to, but it is unlikely that you'll be able to turn it in the next day when it's due.
So by giving that right to initiate the recount at that time, that really is an illusory right. In other words, that is not really correct in the statute, that you have that much time before the certification of the results, in other words, to make that request?
You have the 7-day period within which to handle all of the counting of the votes, the initial counting, if you have an automatic recount, and if there's going to be a manual recount. But the other point, Your Honor, that I think is very important to note is that we're not talking about a manual recount on a statewide basis. It's 3 selected counties.
But what about recounting all of Florida's counties? Is that a solution?
The position of Governor Bush that he would not go along with wanting recounts in the other counties because the process is flawed?
No, Your Honor. I think we should follow the process that's set out in the statute.
But I'm asking you that question, is that you're saying that recounts weren't requested because there was a belief that the process was flawed.
Right.
What part of the process was flawed?
Well, as has been indicated, we think the process is entirely subjective, subject to mischief, and most important,
the manual recount process.
Well, the process, for example, that we were discussing in Broward County today.
But is it the manual recount process that's inherently flawed?
Yes.
It was also argued today by Governor Bush's lawyers that Florida law does allow a candidate or party to contest election results, but only after all the ballots have been certified by the state. And that challenge is supposed to happen in court, not in the form of a recount. Today, the justices made clear that they're fully aware of the atmosphere outside the courtroom. They know they're expected either to disallow these recounts for good or else come up with rules to complete the counting. And they know that time is short. I'm John Donvan for Nightline in Washington.
We're back again for a quick word with Doug Kamick and Pam Carlin. Doug, it seems that neither side was spared the hazing from the justices today, but how did the Republicans do?
Well, neither side was spared the hazing, and that was good. It suggested that the court was well prepared, but the Republicans came in for extra questioning more than the Democrats, I think. In part, it was because of their own affirmative style, and the court lit up when the Republicans were making their arguments. I think the best argument may have been made by Barry Richard. He said simply, follow the statutes, follow the Constitution. That's the only thing the court can do.
Pam Carlin, your thoughts, especially on that last exchange we just heard between the attorney for Governor Bush and Justice Pariente. She seemed to be laying a bit of a trap for him.
Well, I think she was in a way, which is if the Republicans raise their federal law claims in a state proceeding, they may find it very difficult to get federal review from either the District Court or the 11th Circuit later on that. And I think the court was particularly concerned here with the tension between the decision to allow manual recounts to continue and having a certification process that occurs in the middle of an ongoing manual recount. And here I don't think they got an answer that gave them much traction.
We'll be back with more in just a moment.
My brother's son said he had an idea that would make us rich.
That funny-looking kid said that.
Said we can use the internet.
The internet? We ain't selling books, we're selling feed, and we already sell every ranch in the county.
Harlan, you ever been outside the county? Well?
Give me a minute, I'm thinking.
Wow. Nice place.
Oh, thanks. Used to be a warehouse.
Killer office.
Yeah, it was actually a warehouse.
Cool place! What? Cool place! Oh, it was a warehouse! What?
UPS helps companies shed costly warehouse space by streamlining supply chains with new ideas that trim inventory and increase speed to market. UPS, moving at the speed of business.
Sleeping bag for his first sleepover, $40. Backpack, $18.
Sorry about that. Hey, buddy, you couldn't sleep, huh?
Walkie-talkies, $25. Going home, priceless. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard. Win a house in our Home for the Holiday sweepstakes. Go to MasterCard.com.
That new boss is from another planet.
Totally spaced out at that meeting.
Hey, what's that on your desk?
ABCnews.com. Ready when you are.
Nathan!
Nathan, what is taking you so long?
Just give me a second, would you, Mom?
Come on, hurry up. I have a hair appointment at 2, and now he can't have children. Nathan, make sure it's not too restrictive. Come on, let me see how my Snooky looks.
I look stupid.
You do look stupid.
Get a plan that's right for you, like Bell South Rollover. Only our minutes roll over to the next month. We also feature Ericsson digital phones. Now at your local Bell South mobility store.
Every day we hear reports of neglect, abuse, and suicide. To help prevent these tragedies, the key is intervention.
The Crisis Intervention Center handles over 100,000 calls per year. As a volunteer, you'll receive over 40 hours of training to provide counseling or emergency referral to those in need.
We also offer sudden loss and survivors of suicide support groups to anyone who has lost a loved one.
Don't go it alone. The Crisis Intervention Center is there when no one else will listen.
We're back again with constitutional law professor Doug Kamick of Pepperdine University and elections law professor Pam Carlin of Stanford University. In listening to the questions today, did either of you get the sense that the justices may have been looking for some kind of middle ground? Pam, let's start with you.
Well, I think they are looking for a middle ground, which is they really want to make sure that the so-called election contests have enough time to occur. And those can't begin, apparently, until after the Secretary of State certifies. So it may be that what they're really looking for is some light at the end of the tunnel of the recounts and a relatively soon end to the recounts so that there can be a certification and then there can be litigation over whether the recounts should or shouldn't have happened.
Professor Kamick, did you hear any seeds of a compromise in the questioning today?
Well, I think the court initially thought that they might be able to work with December 12th as the outside deadline, thinking that that was the date absolutely necessary to finish under federal law to get the Florida electors qualified for the Electoral College. But that's a very troubling thought, in part because the deadline that the Florida statute sets is much earlier than that, and the court, in essence, is thinking about rewriting the statute. And that's something that the Bush camp, at least, thinks is unconstitutional and also against the Florida Code.
Professor Carlin, the Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court, kept coming back to that again and again, asking the Democrats whether they could be ready by December 12th, and, in effect, asking the Republicans if if he allowed them to certify the votes, whether that December 12th deadline would also be a problem for them.
Well, I think whatever happens with the certification, there's going to be litigation after the certification. If Secretary of State Harris certifies reasonably soon, before all the recounts are done, then if the recounts continue and they indicate a different result, Democratic voters or Vice President Gore will bring a lawsuit. If the certification is held off for a while and the manual recounts from the 3 counties that are ongoing get counted, Republican voters and Vice President Bush are likely to bring a lawsuit. And I think the court is most concerned with just the idea of making sure that that lawsuit gets adjudicated all the way through the Florida court system in time for the December 12th deadline.
Isn't there another problem that the court is dealing with here, and that is the electors have to be certified by the state capitals on December 18th. If for some reason the Florida process is not complete, then, as I understand it, the Florida legislature, which is mostly Republican or Republican-led, could step in and approve a slate of electors. Professor Kamick?
I think there's a real possibility of that. This is untested water. The federal code suggests that the authority for appointing electors is in the state legislature, not in the state court. And there's a provision of the federal code that says if there's a failure to appoint electors on election day, then the state legislature can act. Now, there's a debate among scholars as to how they can act and whether it's too late to act after the election. But the words of the statute wouldn't seem to deny the legislature, and it's the kind of hornet's nest that really would pose a constitutional problem and I think would be looked at by the people of Florida with some regret because they would be losing their right to vote.
Well, I think that the statement that the legislature is supposed to choose the electors is really about the process. And here Florida has a process that also includes the idea of judicial contests. That is, lawsuits over whether the results that were certified correctly were or weren't certified correctly. So I think that the judicial process is part of what the Florida legislature set up as a way of determining the outcome of elections.
And we'll be back with a final question for our guests in a moment.
To receive a daily email announcement about each evening's Nightline and a preview of special broadcasts, log on to our webpage at nightline.abcnews.com.
This Sunday through Wednesday, when you use your Sears card, you'll get 10% off almost everything in the store, even sale prices. Use the card, save 10%. 4 days only, so hurry into Sears.
Chris was like my shadow. She was always there. For 3 years, she'd drive down from her job at Kraft to tutor me. My grades went way up.
For 40 years, the Philip Morris companies, including Kraft, have given to programs like Chicago's Off the Street Club, and our employees have volunteered their time to help make a difference in people's lives.
When she left to have a baby, I told her I hoped she'd have a daughter. She already did a great job helping to raise a son.
Working to make a difference, the people of Philip Morris.
Now you can get 1,000 minutes of nighttime state-to-state long distance and unlimited internet access for just $30 a month, because some things were just meant to be together. Hook up with Sprint and Earthlink at 1-800-PIN-DROP.
This Thanksgiving weekend, the best movies, the best commercials, to get you in the holiday spirit. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sinbad, Tim Allen, and these guys. Jingle all the way, the best holiday commercials and the Santa Claus. ABC Thanksgiving weekend.
You've heard me say just about any driver in Middle Tennessee will tell you, American Tire sells quality Goodyear tires. But we're especially proud of our Gemini Auto Care.
Come see us now for our winter warm-up car care package. We'll change your oil, top off all your fluids, inspect your hoses, analyze your battery condition, check your brakes, rotate your tires, even replace your wiper blades. All for only $44. Right now at American Tire or Jennings Tire. 12 convenient locations for all your tire and auto service needs.
Craving that one-of-a-kind taste of Long John Silver's? Now you can satisfy your cravings with our new Seafood and More meal. Our famous golden fried fish, crispy battered shrimp, and one of our great new crab cakes. Tender, tasty crab. Done that special Long John Silver's way. Served with a delicious new sauce with hush puppies, fries, and slaw. Our new Seafood and More meal. Now just $3.99. Come in now, because deals like this don't last long. Long John Silver's. You can't resist the cravings.
Back again with law professors Doug Kamick and Pam Carlin. Let's handicap a couple of scenarios now. If Vice President Gore, for example, loses in this Supreme Court case, Pam Carlin, what recourse does he have from there?
If he loses in this case, he could have an election challenge brought after the election. A lot of it depends on how he loses. He could lose big or he could lose small. Losing small is allowing the certification to go forward without deciding whether the manual recounts will have to come in post-certification. If that's the case, he'll bring a lawsuit.
And Professor Kamick, if Governor Bush loses, where can he go? Back to the federal court?
Well, I think he would go back to federal court, maybe even the Supreme Court of the United States, petitioning them to review the question of the scope of the state court's authority under the U.S. Constitution and the Florida statutes. In essence, it's a federal question because the federal Constitution provides that it's the state legislature that decides the appointment of electors, and I think Governor Bush would want that adjudicated in federal court, as well as his equal protection challenge that selective recounting dilutes the votes of the other people who voted in Florida.
We just have a few seconds left. Very quickly, let's handicap the most likely outcome that you see, beginning with you, Pam Carlin.
I think the Florida Supreme Court will set a deadline by which the recounts have to be done, allow certification at that point, and then anticipate a group of lawsuits.
Professor Kamick, what's the Supreme Court going to do?
Well, I'm going to hope that the Supreme Court follows the rule of law, and I think if they do follow the rule of law, they'll be guided by the statute, and that will be a victory for Governor Bush.
Pam Carlin, Doug Kamick, thanks so much for joining us tonight. That's our report for tonight. I'm Chris Bury in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News. than from any other source.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire invites you to start a new Thanksgiving tradition. Thursday, it's the first night of a special family edition of Millionaire.
2 people in the hot seat at the same time.
When parents and their kids go for $1 million. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Family Edition, Thanksgiving Thursday, 9/8 Central on ABC.
Watch News 2 from 5 to 6 a.m. for your chance to win Predators ticket.
We've got 3 minutes till the reactor blows. We're never gonna make it.
You've got to get out of here. Save yourself.
No, I won't leave you.
Don't worry about me. I'm a robot. I'm just a machine.
No, you're not. Not to me.
Oh, my God.
What?
I am extremely talented.
Yeah, you're great. Okay, let's take it from...
No, I mean, I was really acting my ass off.
I thought I was pretty good, too.
Oh, yeah, you're solid. Yeah, you're just, me.
You know what? I think that's enough for now, yeah. I don't want to be over-rehearsed.
Fine. I'll do it without you. I don't need you or anybody else. I'm gonna make it on my own.